Hi, this is Dave Lucas from the New York State Association of Counties, and welcome to our 2021 Virtual County Finance School. Today's program will be a New York State and local retirement systems update from our partners at the State Comptroller's Office. NYSAC wants to thank our sponsor for today's webinar, PKF O'Connor Davies LLP. PKF O'Connor Davies provides accounting, audit, and budget advisory services to county governments. They are recognized as a premier accounting and advisory firm and have served the public sector for over 60 years. They deliver extensive experience in providing services tailored to the specific needs of each county government. PKF has been a longtime supporter and sponsor of NYSAC educational programs, and we greatly appreciate their support of today's program. Jeanette, any follow-up you want to have?
Yes, Dave. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of housekeeping measures for the program today. We will be recording this program and posting it after 1 o'clock today on the NYSAC website under the Education tab under Finance School. Just look for today's date. We will also be posting a PDF of the slides as well as a copy of the CPE credit form. We also ask you, if you need that form, you can click on the handouts tab on your dashboard and it'll drop down and you'll be able to see that you can download a copy of that CPE credit form as well right from our dashboard. But if you don't feel like downloading it right now, it will be posted on the NYSAC website under the Education tab under Finance School. Again, just look for May 17th, 10 a.m. and you'll find everything that you need after 1 o'clock today. We will be doing Q&A near the last 10 to 15 minutes of the program today. And we ask that you submit all questions in writing through your dashboard questions tab. All you have to do is click on the questions tab. A box will drop down that you can type your question into, and we will read them in the order in which they're received at the end of the program for live answers. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Jeanette. Again, a special thank you to the New York State Office of the State Comptroller for partnering with us for over the decades. It's been a great partnership. OSC is not only presenting a number of sessions with another one this week. They're actually doing both the sessions this week, but they're also certifying the CPE credits through OSC. Thank you to Dana Aquilano for representing OSC as our lead collaborator on this virtual program. And now for today's speaker, Colleen Gardner, Executive Deputy Comptroller for the Division of Retirement Services in the Office of the State Comptroller. Colleen was appointed Executive Deputy Comptroller for the New York State and local retirement system by Comptroller DiNapoli in September 2015. She began working for retirement services in 2014. Prior to joining OSC, Ms. Gardner held various leadership roles in state government, including Commissioner of the New York State Department of Labor and Deputy Executive Director of the New York State Insurance Fund. And I think she'll have better news based on returns this year than last year. So I'm going out on a limb on that one, but I'm going to turn it over to Colleen, and thank you so much for presenting today.
Thanks, Dave, and I'm happy to say that you're right, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, although we're still calculating what the returns were at the end of the fiscal year. But first, I want to thank you all for inviting me to be with you. We really value at the New York State and local retirement system the partnership we have with our participating employers, and the 57 counties outside of New York City represent some of our largest employers. And I know retirement security and pensions are an important part of the benefits package that you offer your staff, and study after study shows that public employees very much value having a pension. So our goal is to provide those, make sure we have a fund that's funded and available to pay future benefits, as well as making sure that we can all work together to administer those benefits effortlessly. So if you could proceed to the first slide, that's some of the areas that I'm going to touch on today, is bring you an update on some of the numbers, as well as our membership and the pensions that we provide. I'll give you some information on how our services have changed a bit since COVID-19, although we're continuing to provide the services that we have in the past, maybe in a different way. I'll talk about some of the funding and employer contribution calculations and how we get to those annual contribution rates, as well as talk about the trends and where we are as far as contributions for this year as well as next year. And then we're in the I'll talk about Retirement Online, which is our multi-year project to replace our legacy computer system with a new user-friendly technology called Retirement Online. It uses a PeopleSoft basis, and it's something that's allowed us to provide more information to members through member self-service, as well as more information to employers. So if you can move to the next slide, and actually the one after that, just these are the numbers as of last fiscal year, March 31st, 2020, and our fiscal year is the end of the state fiscal year. So right now we're calculating all the information. The actuary is looking at all the reported information as of the close of March 31st, 2021, and we'll be reporting that information in the next few months in our financial report. But we have to wait into April for all the employer reports to come in. And of course, it takes a lot longer to calculate some of our investments. So we will be announcing probably the fund value in the next few weeks, and that will give you an estimate of where contributions will be in the following year. But this slide represents where we were at the end of March 31st, 2020, which was in the midst of the pandemic. Those are the numbers. We have close to 3,000 employers. We're highly complex. We have 327 plan combinations, but we continue to grow, and we continue to grow as far as members and retirees. And over last year, we saw an increase in both in fiscal year 2020. We did see a growth in retirees over the past fiscal year. They continue to grow, and I know a number of counties and other employers had retirement incentives. We saw about 40,000 new members, which is slightly down from the prior year. So in many instances, we did not see new hires. Now, the value of the fund at the end of March 2020, the fund went down. We had a negative 2.68% return, and the value of the fund was 194.3 billion, and that impacted the contribution rates that we actually will be asking for in this current fiscal year, and I'll get to that in a future slide. Next slide. Just as a general overview, we're a defined benefit pension plan. We basically, members receive a fixed pension guaranteed for life. It's based on service credit, final average salary, and the plan formula. And depending on what plans you have, I know many counties also have police and fire plans. Some of those benefits are based also on years of service, but not necessarily age. And some plans are more generous than others, and so the cost may differ depending on the plan you have, as well as the tiers that your employees currently are in. We're not a defined contribution plan, although members, especially newer members in tiers 5 and 6, will be contributing for their careers, and those contributions help fund the benefits, but they are not the basis for calculating what the pension would be. NYSLRS is a qualified plan. We have a lot of rules that we follow under Internal Revenue Service, as well as the New York State Retirement and Social Security law. Next slide. This gives you an idea of membership by tier. When we say ERS, that's the Employees Retirement System, and PFRS is the Police and Fire Retirement System. We tend to put tiers 3 and 4 together because they're so much alike. But as you can see, the number of tier 6 members is now, surpassing tiers 3 and 4. So the, folks since I think it was April 1 of 2012 are now in tier 6. So our actuary has calculated that if you have an employee who's in tier 5, the benefit cost is about 83% of a tier 4 member. And if you have members and employees who are in tier 6, the cost of a tier 6 benefit is typically 56% of a tier 4 member. So the more newer employees you have who are just new to the retirement system, the lower the cost will be. Next slide. The next slide shows the membership by employer type, and as you can see, counties have a lot of counties are some of our biggest employers, and we do have police and fire plans in counties, but that gives you a general idea of where our members are. The state is one employer, but has 300 different agencies. So the state is our biggest employer. Next slide. This gives you average salary by government type. As you can see, salaries in police and fire tend to be higher on the county side, but those are sort of the general average salaries. And of course, pensions are really based on folks' average salary, final average salary. Next slide. This is we pay out 13.25 billion in benefits in fiscal year 2020. What this information here shows you the average pension for all retirees. So in ERS, the average pension is modest. It's $25,105. If you looked at new retirees, of course, newer retirees make more money than earlier retirees. So the average is a little bit higher, 31,872. On average on the police and fire pensions, we see the average pensions being higher, and the police and fire average pension is $54,684, and the new retirees, it's higher, it's over $81,000 a year. Next slide. But in general, this shows you in 2020 where the amounts, the number of retirees who had a pension of the size of like 100,000 and more, and different bands. And as you can see, there's only a small percentage of members have pensions that are over 100,000. Next slide. This breaks it down even further to show that most of the over 100,000 pensions are in police and fire. And on the ERS side, what we typically see is higher pensions in some of the healthcare units. Next slide. So in general, we are paying out over $1 billion in pensions every month. And this shows in 2019 the economic impact of that. And I would say, especially so when the pandemic started last year, it was good that we were sending out over $1 billion in benefits every month that people could count on. About 79% of all our retirees stay in New York State. And so what this map shows is the the amount in pensions that are paid out in different regions of the state. And these $15.2 billion in pensions paid out represents significant spending and supports jobs. Next slide. And this also shows what the estimate of what our retirees pay in taxes. NYSLRS retirees are 1.9% of the New York population, but they actually pay double in that as far as a percentage of taxes around the state. So our retirees are paying $2.8 billion in taxes every year. Next slide. So I wanted to provide to you some of the information on the COVID response. I think the biggest change that we had, we continued to pay out new benefits. I think at first things slowed down a little bit for us. We had a difficulty. I'm sure you ran into the same issue when the pandemic started. Not all of our staff had laptops and were able to work from home. But in several months' time, after we were able to get a supply, we had many staff working from home. We do have staff coming into the office, but we were doing about 600 consultations a week in person throughout the state. And what we had to close our offices, and our offices are still temporarily closed, although in Albany we do have people dropping things off. And we moved from a model of in-person retirement consultations to a model of phone and in some cases video consultations. We've actually had a very good response from members because they didn't have to come in, and they could have the phone consultation from wherever they wanted to be able to talk to us on. And we also made an effort to get information out to people prior to the consultation, which we had done before, but we also had an ability for people to calculate some of their benefits through a new benefit estimator that we put into effect in February of 2020. And it allows people to use more specific information in their retirement account to more accurately estimate what their benefit would be. And so we saw a lot of people doing that. And so they were coming into the consultations with eyes wide open and a lot of questions. And we got great feedback from the members that we had consultations with. We also expanded the number of webinars that we did with employers around the state, and we continue to do that, and we have staff available who can do virtual webinars. Next slide. So we put up a lot of information for employers because we increasingly received questions from employers about things like furloughs or people taking leave. So that's a picture or a snapshot of the guidance that we have up on our website. Next slide. So we worked with employers, and we put information on how to handle instances where employees were going on furlough and still needed to make a payment on their retirement system loan. There's information still about how to report members who are furloughed, and there were a number of different leave acts that were passed during this time, and so there's more specific information about reporting instructions for any of these instances. Next slide. Oh. So here's additional. I think that was the same slide. I think I may have put the same slide up. Okay, next slide. So for members, we also had information. Oh, okay. So one, we were getting an increasing number of members reach out to us or their family members because we saw members who may have contracted COVID. So we put specific guidance on a number of things. One, we encourage our members to make sure they have updated designated beneficiaries. We also have a power of attorney form, a special form that's up on our website that allows someone to give the power of attorney over retirement system benefits. We encourage people to use the form that's up on our website. And by the way, we're in the process of updating that form because there was a change in the law on a power of attorney. Previously, or up until June 30th of this year, you need to have a special gift rider to allow someone to make decisions on retirement system benefits. But there were some changes in how that is presented, and it actually will simplify the power of attorney form, and we're in the process of updating that for June 30th deadline. So the other thing we encourage members to do if they were sick was to file a disability retirement application if they became hospitalized due to COVID-19. With a disability retirement, the member could file but withdraw if they did get better, and we did see a couple of dozen members do that. Next slide. So we also provided information to folks about filing for service retirement through Retirement Online. People can now, since last year, people can file for service retirement online. The Comptroller had asked for a special waiver from the governor through executive order. Usually, you need to file for retirement 15 to 90 days before your date of retirement, but we had a concern that there may be some folks who got sick and couldn't file within the 15 days, and so we asked for the waiver. That is still in place right now, and people can do that by either filing for service retirement online, but also, we still accept the paper process. There are a couple other items that were updated through executive order that affect the retirement system. Right now, actually, I believe since March 7th, there's a earnings limitation for public retirees. They can't earn more than $35,000 a year post-retirement for a public employer. Since March 7th of last year, there has been no earnings limitation, and that's still in effect right now. There's the other provision that was changed is the governor's executive order has allowed us to notarize forms by audio video technology, and we've been doing that for members and working with some employers who have reached out to us, and we'll continue to do that. So all these items that have an asterisk, these were all established through executive order. And actually, I know the slide says it was extended through June 5th. It's actually now been extended through June 9th. You know, every few days there's a review of governor's executive orders and these things get extended out. So I think we get a lot of questions about the Section 212 earnings limit of 35,000. If you have any retirees who are currently working for you, up until June 9th, their earnings, there's no limit on their earnings. And we'll continue to monitor that. Next slide. One of the items that was enacted in law was a special COVID-19 accidental death benefit. A law was first passed around this time last year and actually was extended this year through December 31st, 2022. So basically, it provides for an accidental death benefit to any public employee who contracted COVID-19 in the workplace. And one of the things we look at is whether or not someone was in their workplace and contracted COVID within 45 days. And then if they died on or before December 31st, 2022, and if they died, if their death was due to COVID-19, or if COVID-19 contributed to their death. And basically the accidental death benefit is a benefit which is about 50% of the final average salary to certain statutory beneficiaries of the member who dies. And first it's spouse, and then it's dependent children up to a certain age, and then a dependent parent. In some cases, for police and fire members who died due to COVID-19, there is an additional accidental death benefit for them over and above the 50%. So one of the things we do if someone does, if we do get information that a member died due to COVID-19, is we do reach out to the employer to verify that the member had been in the office within 45 days of contracting COVID-19. The families of people who die do have the choice between the accidental death benefit and the ordinary death benefit. In some circumstances, the ordinary death benefit, depending on the family situation, may be better. In some cases, we've had some members who had already applied for disability. So the members' beneficiaries get the choice between whatever benefit they would like, and we present to them all the various benefits that they may be eligible for. And of course, we work closely with employers to make sure we get it done accurately. Next slide. So these are additional resources that are available through OSC. You may be interested. There's a financial toolkit for local officials regarding COVID-19. Next slide. So if you hit this one a couple of times, this is an interactive slide. So it talks about how pensions are funded. So essentially, the employee contributions are a small fixed percentage of all overall contributions that pay for the retirement system benefits. 68 cents of every dollar right now comes from investment earnings, and that's actually higher than many other retirement system plans across the state. Across the country. But employers also pay a large chunk of contributions for our pensions, And right now it represents about 29 cents out of every dollar. So each year the actuary calculates what's needed to fund the system, and actuaries all over the country basically use the same formula. But I think where we're different is we appreciate that our employers have made all their required contributions. That has allowed us to be able to pay out the level of benefits and have a well-funded plan. We're the third largest pension fund in the country, but of the top 3 pension funds, we're the best funded. Next slide. So this is just sort of the general overview. We look at how much the actuary looks at how much benefits need to be paid out, or how much, or what the promised benefits are, and estimates the amount of money that will be due in the future, and then discounts it for how much it costs today. The actuary looks at the overall expenses, and then that has to equal the income, the investments and contributions. So after the actuary calculates how much is needed and how much we pay out in expenses and what money is coming in through investments and employee contributions, whatever else needs to be paid, that's how we calculate the employer contribution. We look at the value of the fund, but we look at the value of the fund over 5 years. We smooth out the investments so that one bad year doesn't affect impact the volatility of employer contributions. Next slide. So essentially, if benefits, expenses, and employee contributions are held constant, any change in investment income, either up or down, will result in a change in employer contributions. Next slide. So at the beginning of the year, April 1, the actuary conducts the valuation, and then the actuary also establishes the value of the assets using the smoothing method over 5 years. And then when the current value of benefits are greater than the assets, the difference is made up with the employer contributions. And that difference is spread over the working lives of current members. Next slide. So one of the important things that impact employer contributions is what we call the assumed rate of return. The assumed rate of return is our estimate of how much our investment, what return our investments will achieve. And then, then we look at the actual investment returns and the assumed returns. The actuary factors in other factors such as mortality rates and other demographic changes such as salary increases that our members are receiving, and then calculates the rate. For back in April 1 of 2019, the actuary recommended reducing the assumed rate of return from 7% to 6.8% because we had been seeing a lower return environment in the markets. So technically, the actuary at least every 5 years has to recommend what the assumed rate of return would be. Back in 2015, the recommendation to the Comptroller was to lower the assumed rate of return from 7.5% to 7%. But given all the market changes and the volatility, typically the actuary would have waited till 2020, but the actuary felt that it would be important for proper funding of the system to lower the assumed rate of return in 2019. And the other reason for lowering it sooner in 2019 is we had seen an opportunity to mitigate the impact of lowering the assumed rate of return to employers. Because when we lower the assumed rate of return, that means that we expect our investments won't be as high, so we have to ask employers for a larger contribution. So we basically had changed our mortality table where it did not, we actually saw that people weren't living as long as we had expected, and we started using a mortality table that was more reflective of the actual mortality in our system, and that meant that that lowered the contributions required of employers. So what ended up happening, even though we lowered the assumed rate of return, last year the contribution rates were relatively stable. It was 14.6% for ERS and increased slightly for police and fire to 24.44%. So, you know, we don't want to make these changes with, you know, in a vacuum. We want to look at the bigger picture, and the end result is we want to ensure that we receive the contributions we need and be as close as possible to asking you for what we need, rather than, you know, charging more than we need. So the actuary, you know, continued to monitor investment returns and looks at interest rates and looks at a whole variety of factors in figuring out the amount that we need to charge employers. Next slide. So then the pandemic hit. Then we had a crisis, which the pandemic really started up and had a huge impact on market value of funds in March of 2020. And of course, we are the only retirement system that has a fiscal end date of March 31st. So, you know, we didn't reach the assumed rate of return in fiscal year 2020. And of course, that means that rates will increase for fiscal year 2022, the fiscal year that we're in right now. The system lost, had a negative 2.68 return for fiscal year 2020, but the fund remained strong and returns have bounced back. We have plenty of liquidity. We're paying out, you know, benefits, and we actually sell assets every month to pay all the benefits that we need to pay out. And we've weathered big storms before. As a reminder, back in the recession in 2008, 2009, the value of the retirement system went down by more than 30%. So, you know, we have, we're calculating the fund value for fiscal year 2021, and you know, our estimates show that, you know, we've regained our losses and we are well funded. Next slide. So this is, as I mentioned, this year, fiscal year 2022 is where we're going to feel the impact of the value of the fund as of the end of March 31st, 2020. It's going to be spread over 5 years. The average ERS contribution is going to increase 1.6% to 16.2% of payroll. The average police and fire contribution is going to increase 3.9% to 28.3% of payroll. And of course, you know, depending on your mix of staffing, if you have, you know, and the types of plans that you have adopted, that amount will vary. And if you have more tier 5 and 6 members, the rates rates will be lower than if you had a more mature workforce. Employers can amortize a portion of the increase for this year's contribution. For police and fire, because the increase in the pension contribution is more than 2%, there is a limited tax cap exclusion of 1.9% for the increase in police and fire rates. We provided these projected contribution rates for fiscal year 2022 back in September, and also provided information to employers if they were interested in amortizing to show how much that would cost. Next slide. This is sort of in the weeds, but it comes out of the actuaries report. If you wanted to figure out how we calculated those contribution rates, these are some of the major factors that we look at. As you can see, we took, at the top was the fiscal year 2021 average contribution rates for employers for ERS and police and fire. We took 5 years of investment performance. We looked at mortality. We looked at tier 6 new entrant rates, things like that. And ultimately you get down to the bottom and shows you how we got to those contribution rates for fiscal year 2022. Next slide. These are the general rate trends to show you over time what employer contribution rates were. Next slide. This, on a graph, this shows you that following the recession in 2008, contributions went up, and then now they've been coming down, and we've had a couple of years of volatility. So the rates have gone up slightly over the last couple of years. Next slide. Next slide. This just shows you the general diversity of the funds that that we have. There are some rules in legislation that limits certain things that we can invest in. But we do have a diverse portfolio that allows us to, we're institutional investors. We have a strong mix of all kinds of assets. I think the one type of asset that for the current or the fiscal year that just closed that is more difficult to value is real estate. And so, we've had a wide range of returns as far as our various real estate holdings. But in general, our investments in public equities, private equities, global equities had done very well over the past fiscal year. Next slide. Oh, if you hit it again. I guess you got to go through all of them, but this shows you the value of the fund. And just remember that the fund, these numbers reflect the value of the fund at the end of the fiscal year after the over $12 billion in benefits are paid out. Next slide. What this slide shows are the various percentage returns overall. So if you look at 2011 to 2015, that's when the assumed rate of return was 7.5%. We had a couple of years where we were below and the rest where we were above. And, then we lowered it to 7, and, we've had some really good years, and then we've had some years where we were below the assumed rate of return. So we are seeing a volatile market. We did close out the end of the calendar year of 2020. The fund value was at, I believe it was $247 billion. And our initial look and calculations is we're probably going to surpass that for the final closeout of the fiscal year. And our fund, we believe, was at a record value as of the end of the fiscal year. So stay tuned. In the next few weeks, we'll have the controller will be announcing the estimated value of the fund. Next slide. So I had mentioned we have a major IT system redesign, and we've done a lot of upgrades to make working with the retirement system easier, hopefully, for employers and members. We have retirement online for members, and I hope, I'm sure many of you are on this call are members, and I encourage you to set up an account if you haven't done it already. We have, actually, I think it's more like 350,000 members and retirees who use Retirement Online to do business with us. And we have multi-factor authentication to maintain security. If people do have difficulty setting up their account, they can always call our call center, and we will help people set up an account. But there's also information on our website for setting up an account. Next slide. So some of the things that members can do with Retirement Online is they can apply for a loan using their retirement system contributions. I mentioned previously they can generate pension estimates that are really geared towards their retirement specific information. They can put different information in, such as changing their beneficiary, or date of retirement, or age at which they'll retire. They can print out and save a whole bunch of estimates using different criteria. People can also update their beneficiaries online. Next slide. And of course, now people can apply for retirement online, and we're actually seeing more than half of our retirements coming in through member self-service. Actually, this week we started mailing out member annual statements, but anyone can go into their Retirement Online account and view their member and create a member annual statement. In the past, we had previously mailed out the statements to employers for distribution. I know that's something we appreciated you doing, but it could be a hardship and for some employers. So last year we started mailing member statements to members' homes. We also encouraged people to receive their member statement electronically. But right now, this is a season we parse it out into over 5 weeks. We mail out the statements, and we started our first batch on Friday. The one thing that has changed is through Retirement Online, more information is transparent to members. And while we have to provide a statement to members every year, they can go into the Retirement Online and get an up-to-date, real-time information and data about their retirement account at any time. So I think we will be seeing members viewing their Retirement Online information differently because they'll see what their up-to-date service credit is at any time throughout the year. Members can also apply for service credit via Retirement Online, as well as upload documentation to help us figure out what service credit they may be entitled to. Next slide. Members can also make payments towards their loan through Retirement Online. They can ask for to transfer their membership, and they can apply for tier reinstatement. Next slide. This is the so if you're a member, when you go into your account, this is what you'll see, and there's all different information available, and in the green section that shows the different things that that they can do through their retirement online account. Next slide. This is, we do have a marketing toolkit that employers can use to encourage their employees to sign up for retirement online. And we ask that you do that throughout the year. Receiving the information through retirement online and having members use self-service more actually streamlines the process for us and for you in many ways. Next slide. So there's also retirement online for employers, and last year we rolled out a new employer billing dashboard. Next slide. And this is what the billing dashboard looks like. Previously, we had information on applications in different areas, and now it's all within one billing area in one convenient place. Next slide. So what's available is we provide you with the salary listings, and we try to do that over the summer so you can take a look at it, because remember, now you are billed. You'll be billed this year. Your contribution rates will be based on your payroll for the previous fiscal year. So we provide the salary listings to employers so that they can look at them and verify that they're correct. We also provide prior year's adjustments. We're all required to, under GASB 68, to provide a footnote on our financial statements that shows each employer's net pension liability for the year. And so we provide that information over the summer. We also provide you with your estimates in this employer billing dashboard of what your fiscal year 2022 contribution rate will be. And then we'll also be providing you with projections of the following fiscal year. When we conclude the value of the fund that we just closed out, that will impact your rates for fiscal year 2023, and we'll be providing those projections to you in probably in August or September of this year. And then, of course, in November, we provide you with your invoice through the billing dashboard. The other thing that the billing dashboard has is information on amortization, and as well as we've had a number of employers ask us about paying off their amortizations. You can plug in the if you would like to make an early payment on any of your amortizations, there's an ability to go in and put the date and the amount that you would like to prepay, and it will recalculate your amortization. So we encourage you to do that. Next slide. That's kind of what the retirement online billing dashboard looks like. And next slide. So any employer who has the retirement online user ID and has the billing security role would have billing dashboard access. There's all kinds of information on our website to find out more of what's available. We're very careful about the security access that we provide to employer contacts. We have usually every employer has to designate someone who oversees all your security roles. And anytime you have changes in staff, we need to be notified, and then new people need to be submitted. And we have a formal approval process because we want to maintain the integrity of the system and prevent anyone from accessing information they shouldn't have. Next slide. And finally, I just wanted to mention our employer reporting. Right now, most employers are reporting through Retirement Online, but they're reporting what we call the legacy data, the data that you had been providing to us over the last couple of decades, but you're reporting through Retirement Online. Next slide. But what we would eventually like to do is move to what we call enhanced reporting. And that would provide enormous value to both employers and to the retirement system. The enhanced reporting basically came about through feedback that we received from employers throughout the state. We had an employer advisory committee, and we looked at some of the things that would be helpful to you in the information you report and the information we need to receive from you, especially at the time of retirement for your employees. What enhanced reporting will do is where we will have employers report all employees, including optional members, because we will be storing that information for you. So in the future, if someone comes back and wants to request prior service credit, we will have that information on file for you. That's something that employers had asked for. The other thing is that the earnings breakdown will be, there'll be more information in buckets to put the earnings in. And that's important, especially at the time of retirement, because there are certain earnings that can be counted towards the final average salary. And we want to ensure that we have, information reported correctly so we can calculate the final average salary more quickly. The other value for enhanced reporting is that if you report in the enhanced reporting format and you report mandatory members, they will automatically be enrolled in the retirement system. You won't have to send us any other information, although we will ask you to keep the enrollment form in your records. So next. So, I mean, the benefits of enhanced reporting is it's really real-time information for employers, things like auto enrollment. You'll get more information about service credit payments that need to be made more quickly. So the deficiencies will go down. But there's a lot of real value and improved accuracy with enhanced reporting. Next slide. So there's a couple of different ways employers can report. Manual and enhanced reporting. Manual reporting is really for small employers with 50 or less employees, but essentially counties would most likely be using either a file upload or a hybrid approach. So we will work with you to help you develop your file. We've also been working with a variety of service providers who do payroll for local governments. And so many of them have already worked with us and the employers they serve to help develop the file upload and move to enhanced reporting. We have one county that is reporting and enhanced reporting, and we have another 8 counties who are in the process of moving to enhanced reporting. Next slide. So the process, we call it goal certification, and these are the steps in order to move to enhanced reporting. We do a number of webinars to introduce employers to enhanced reporting, and you will be assigned a transition coach from our staff who will guide you every step of the way. Next slide. So here's where you would need to go if you haven't already signed up. We encourage you to do it. The feedback we've gotten from employers who have moved to gold certification is, we wish we had done it sooner. So if I can encourage you to take a look at it, it's actually less burdensome than I think people think when they get into it, and it makes for downstream. It has a downstream improvement in timeliness and accuracy of reporting and less back and forth of between us and you. And you know, we've got great transition coaches and can help you get over and move towards enhanced reporting. Next slide. So these are just some resources for enhanced reporting. Next slide. And email and more information on our website. So again, our hope is to get every employer to gold certification in the next couple of years, and I hope that we can help you every step of the way. So with that, I'll open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for that presentation. There's some questions here, and I'll just go through them and hopefully not duplicate. Is there any chance that Tier 6 benefits, I think they're presuming costs may improve now that that population is growing?
Well, the percentage, the way that the actuary calculates the percent, the contribution rate required, of course, it's anyone who's in a Tier 6, the employer would have a lower contribution rate for those folks. The more people, like as people retire and the more people, the more employees are in Tier 6, that will have a bigger impact for the employer. But most people in Tier 6 are just starting out in their careers versus people who are in the lower tiers. They may make have larger earnings, so their percentage of your payroll may not be going down all that quickly. But when the mix changes, that's when employers will start seeing a reduction in their costs.
Thank you. It was mentioned that Tier 5 and Tier 6 compared to Tier 4. Would that be Tier 5 is 83% of
Yes.
cost to the employer?
Yeah.
Tier 4? Okay.
Yep.
Can we expect them? Well, I don't know. You just kind of said you might tell us in September, but can we expect lower employer rates this September since the market bounced back?
Well, keep in mind that 5 years of investment returns will be in the rates, right? So this past year will be in it, as well as a couple other years that were actually with positive returns will be in the 5-year smoothing. So we're taking a look at that right now, and we will probably be close to 100% funded, and that's what the controller is taking a look at. He would like to keep contributions as stable as possible and provide relief if we can to employers. But remember, the investments are 5 years of investments returns will be in the mix with the 2021 returns. So we're in it for the long run, and we want to see those contribution rates come down as much as possible.
As a follow-up to this question, you had mentioned the 5-year cycle the actuary uses. Is 2020 or is 2021 year 5, or was that last year?
Well, actually, that was last year, but the actuary had already in the previous year recommended a change in the assumed rate of return.
Yeah, and I was just wondering if, so I think you answered the question in the presentation, but it sounds like even in the intervening years, he could make an adjustment if he thinks it's in the best interest of the fund.
Right, because the law says the actuary has to make a recommendation about whether or not the assumed rate needs to be changed every 5 years. So it was typically like 2015, 2020. So he can make a recommendation in the intervening years. The long-term estimate of what market returns will be, you know, there's a lot of concern about that, and there's been a lot of volatility. So, you know, we want to be cautious. We tend to be more conservative. We want to ensure that we are over 90% funded. And we've always been like one of the top 5 systems in terms of, you know, Pew Research does look at this every year, and we're always in the top 5 as far as well-funded plans. And I know that's the controller's interest in maintaining that, but also maintaining contribution rates that are consistent and payable by employers.
Great, thank you. How do employees roll time from different New York State employers? This would be like, for example, an employee that didn't sign up for retirement but did have time worked.
So if they didn't join until later on in their careers and they had worked for an employer who was a participating employer, they could reach out to us and ask to purchase previous service credit, because maybe they were a part-timer and optional at that point. We'd also look to see if technically they should have been mandatory or not. So either way, if once we document that they actually had that service and it was for a participating employer, we would calculate the amount that they owe for the service credit, and they would have to pay it with, and we would calculate the interest on that amount. Technically, by law, employers are required to keep employment records for, I think it's actually 55 years, but many employers don't have records, or they may be in a warehouse somewhere, and sometimes it's difficult to verify the previous service. So, you know, we ask, you know, we'll reach out to the employer to confirm if the person had the service. If there are no records, there is also an ability for employees to go to Social Security to get those earnings information. However, there is a cost to doing that.
Okay. We have an investment question here, so this may have to be answered later, but you identify global fixed investment or fixed income investments representing about 23% of the funds invested. Do you anticipate that changing in this new era of increasing bond yields?
So we actually have an asset allocation formula that, you know, every 5 years we do a formal asset allocation review, and we just our investment staff just finished that up last year, and they have set sort of a goal for the value of like fixed income in all of our assets. So that's already set, and they do, you know, they do look at it from year to year to see if there are changes in the way the, you know, fixed income markets are and things like that. So sometimes there are minor adjustments, but we try, unless we set a goal with our asset allocation, and we try to be as close to it, and then account for any changes that we think would make us want to change that allocation. But my thought is we're probably following whatever the asset allocation that was set last year. I don't think there would be too much of a change. We try to stay the course as much as possible, but of course throughout the year, you know, the markets go up and down, and so the mix for our asset allocation, we usually try to be within a couple percentage points for each area as much as possible. But I know they are looking at the fixed income markets to see if there's anything else we need to be doing there.
Okay. I want to rephrase the first question that was the Tier 6 question. The person was, to clarify, they were asking, as a person who is Tier 6 and will be retiring soon, is there a chance that the benefits would be improving?
Well, that would require a legislative change. I mean, technically, all pensions are constitutionally protected. That means that they can't reduce your benefits. That, you know, if you're in a Tier 5 and 6, they can't reduce those benefits, but there can be enhancements made, and that would require legislation in order to improve the Tier 6 benefits.
Okay, great. I see we're at the end of our questions, and we're about at the end of our time as well. Thank you again so much, Colleen, and the partnership with the State Comptroller's Office. This is our 55th year of the County Finance School, and we greatly appreciate that partnership. I was going to turn it back to Jeanette if there's any last-minute housekeeping.
Just a reminder that the program recording and the PDF of the slides will all be up on the NYSEC website under the Education tab, and then under Finance School. Just look for May 17th, and you will see the links at just under the workshop description after 1 o'clock today, if you would like to rewatch any portion of this program.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you again, Colleen.
Thank you.
That concludes our program for today. We hope you can join us for our future programs. We still have a few County Finance School workshops to come. Just check our website for further details.